So we were blessed with the opportunity to go on a missions trip to the Dominican Republic. Some of you were gracious enough to support, and a lot of you prayed for us. We really appreciate that. It was truly a blessing, and going into it, I didn't expect to have as great of a time as I really did. Because, obviously we went there to serve, but it seemed like at the same time in that we were served. So it was just truly a blessing, and so it's great to talk to you guys now about it. So here we are. This is us just landing in the Dominican Republic. So it was not just our FCA group. We also had, how many other groups?
There were groups from Wisconsin, Florida, Maryland, Virginia, and then 3 groups from Pennsylvania, Millersville, Grove City, and IUP.
So we got to meet a whole bunch of different people, not just from IUP, which was really cool, a whole bunch of different athletes. So we immediately landed there, and it was extremely hot, I'll tell you that. Very humid.
So after we got off the airplane, we hopped on a bus and rode a school bus about an hour and a half away from the airport to the center of the island. So this island's positioned in the Caribbean. It borders Haiti. So we all know what's going on in Haiti right now with the military coup and whatnot. So this is the sign going into the town. The name of the town we were in was Hato Mayor del Rey. It's a province in the town there. So the thing of town, they said, was about 50 or 75,000 people. So they really were packed in this small town. And then this picture's inside of the compound there.
So basically the daily schedule for us was the day before you would sign up for an activity that you would do the next day. So we would wake up and we immediately go upstairs and have worship and a devotion time. And we'd come downstairs and we'd eat a very large, delicious breakfast. The food there was surprisingly very good. Obviously, we had special water taken to us because we weren't allowed to drink any water outside of what was given to us. And then after breakfast, we would all get ready to go to different activities. So there was medical work, there was construction, a couple different construction jobs. There was a VBS program, and
VBS,
and
medical, construction,
construction.
painting, digging.
Digging.
Yep, we're digging footers for churches and buildings. And this is inside the church we went to on Sunday. So we landed on Saturday. Sunday morning, we went to a church about an hour away by bus. And this building had only been there for about 5 years, I think it was. And see, oh, these pictures are kind of dark. There you go. And we sat with all the people. There were probably about 40 people at the church this Sunday. So about all 100 of us missionary people came in and sat with them. So.
Their pastor would speak, and we would have one of our translators quickly sum up what he said. Obviously,
there's the translator right there.
And here we have one of Millersville's FCA leaders speaking, and then they had is this Pedro?
I forget.
I think his name is Pedro, translating it into Spanish.
So the main language in the Dominican is Spanish. They were colonized by Spaniards in the 1500s. And this is just a picture of what the roads look like. There are paved roads there. It hasn't been paved forever. I was told that road there has only been paved for about 2 years. So
the main roads are paved, but once you turn off, usually it's gravel or dirt.
Mm-hmm. This is inside the compound. This is the backyard. So you can see the fence going up and down the wall or the hill there. Gate on top of the concrete wall, and then that's all of us outside.
All the houses would have some type of fencing or walls around it, and all of the windows would have bars, as well as doors would have bars, just to protect, and gates. And they said that if the people were too poor to afford metal spikes to put on top of the walls, they would pour concrete and stick shards of broken glass in it. That way, people wouldn't be able to climb over the wall.
This is the mess hall, so you can see the kitchen that they have. They have a full industrial kitchen in there, a walk-in freezer too, big stoves with vent hoods, and 2 whole countertops they can lay out every meal on for 2 separate lines to go through. They feed about 140 people while we were there that whole week. So they had a big group there this time.
Here we went on a hike, this was about 30 minutes.
It almost took an hour to get.
Almost took an hour outside.
It was a mile up and down.
A mile up and down. It was beautiful to walk up, and there were cows and horses, just out and about, just chilling. And we got to walk up as a group and get a great view of the city.
So what you see below is the town of Haida Mayor, Del Rey. Not a lot of peaks there. It's a very flat area, very tropical area. So it was about 85 degrees that day and probably 80% humidity. So we were all sweating pretty good. There was a good breeze though, so that was nice.
You had to watch out for horse and cow patties.
Yeah, there were landmines everywhere.
And they had just gone through the path with a machete and had made it clear, and still it wasn't that clear. So here's morning devotions, worship time, which was really nice to have as a group. That is Scott Wayner. He is the FCA leader at IUP. He's also the chaplain on the football team, and he is what did this all, and his wife was a big part of it too.
All right, so for this, after we did our devotion, they had us sing a prayer towards so we were all facing this direction toward the hillside. So we look at the mountains, and they had a little plaque up on the wall, and we said a 2-sentence prayer, kind of all saying together. We did that every morning before we went out and did our mission work. And it's out in the villages. This is just a picture of a kid. Don't know his name.
So what they would do is they had 2 school buses and 2 cattle trucks, and you would see wherever you signed up. Some places would go to the same town or village, others would go to different ones, and so everyone would go to the same area. Then we'd all unload, get all the supplies off, and then obviously we'd say a prayer together, and then you would break off into whatever sections you were going to.
I think the most we went to and split up, I think we went to 3 separate towns or villages in one day.
Here's a evangelism group. This is one of the things you could sign up for, which I got to do later. It was great. Here's a construction group, unloading bags, concrete. Here's another guy just painting. So when they would do concrete, they wouldn't just have bags of concrete. They would actually have all the sand and water and all that stuff separate. And the Dominican would just, with a shovel, just pour it out in the middle of the ground and mix it. So it was all just by him understanding how much he needed of everything. Right here was a construction group that's digging. What was it?
Digging a footer.
Digging a footer. This day, Mike and I were out. The day before, Mike and I were actually at a church, and we were putting a second story onto a church. So we got to put a whole bunch of cinder block and concrete, which was pretty fun. Here's some college students with the kids VBS program. They would sing songs of God, maybe a quick little message, and then they would play sports all day long. Here's us in one of the cattle trucks. It was awesome to be in the cattle truck because you got to be out and you got to see a lot more, and you also felt the wind on your face, which you really wanted because the bus didn't have AC. The one thing that the people in the front had to do though is that every time we drive by and a tree would be hanging with a branch, you had to yell "tree," and everyone would duck as the branch would smack. And there were a couple times they slacked at their jobs, and some people got it right in the face.
So even after we went out every day and did our mission work, people would come back and still had enough energy to play card games for hours on end. So they play Uno and other. This
was a great time to just socialize with other people, get to learn more about them and their athletic background, but also their faith background. We had people that were there that weren't even Christians. We had people there who've been saved for a long time and grew up in a Christian home. It was really fantastic to learn a whole bunch of different people and their different places with God.
And this is the view of the mountain. You can see the plaque up on the wall. Maybe you can see the words, but that's the song we would sing every morning before we go out and do our missions work.
Here was the second day we were there. I got to go and do the VBS program. So here we are in the church that we showed you a day earlier, and a whole bunch of kids. Like, these kids don't go to school. They maybe go to school maybe once or twice. If they had a little bit more money, maybe more, but a lot of the kids would just be out and about. But here, the pastor would round up a whole bunch of kids to come to the church, and so we got to sing a couple songs, just songs we seen in Sunday school, just in Spanish. I got to help this kid. I'm blanking on his name, but we got to help him color. These kids were very excited to see the colors of the different markers and crayons they had, and just to draw on a piece of paper. And then here we are out in a really big open field where the goats would just be grazing and chickens running around. But the number one sport in the Dominican Republic is baseball. That's all they want to play is baseball, Americano, baseball. So we got to play lots of baseball. Kids were better than me at baseball. I'll tell you that.
And the number one vehicle in the Dominican isn't a vehicle. It's actually scooters, mopeds, dirt bikes, motorcycles. It's the main means of transportation.
And we were not allowed to drive. And it's not because they didn't think we're going to be safe. It was because we do drive safely. And that would make it dangerous.
They
They drive very dangerously. The motorcycles would go in between our buses, quickly veer around us. I saw people carrying barrels on their back while driving, one-handed with a motorcycle. The people would have, I saw one person had up to 5 people on a motorcycle, all just up against each other, holding each other. A lady with her newborn on the back while her husband was driving, just holding the baby like this as they're going down the highway.
And I saw up to 4 people sitting on one scooter. Yeah. Imagine 4 people on a scooter or a little dirt bike on one little seat, and their legs are hanging off the back.
They made it work.
Yeah.
And something the kids really loved was piggyback rides, and that's all you heard the entire time was they'd come up to you and they'd go, Americano, up, because they know very little English, but they knew what they wanted, and they always wanted up on your shoulder. So
this was painting. We painted this was a community center, and it was donated by, well, not donated, but they were allowed to use it. The church in the town was allowed to use this community center. So we painted it and cleaned it out and painted the outside and inside in probably 4 hours. So we scraped all the old paint off, painted it a nice bright blue. They're going to try and use it for church events and medical clinics and other things of that nature. And you can say about the kids ministry how they would just bring up their little
so babies. Moms would come up, and all the girls, all they wanted to do was hold the babies. So they'd walk up and quickly ask the translators to ask if they could hold the babies, which they got to do. There's some more baseball. That's all they did.
Do peace signs, and everyone knew how to wave down there, so that was universal language.
And it's funny because we celebrate Christmas, but they don't celebrate Christmas.
They call it King's Day, when the 3 wise men came to give gifts to Jesus. They do that the first Monday in January.
And that's when the kids get all their gifts. Mm-hmm. And so all the kids, we were there right during that. And so all the kids are running around with like plastic airsoft guns. That's all they had, whether they were 3 years old or 16, 17. And so they were just around shooting each other and us with these little plastic bullets, like airsoft. And so it wasn't surprising to see a whole bunch of kids with a whole bunch of guns. And they did not have orange tips, so you couldn't really tell if they were fake or not. So here we are. This is the same day that I was with kids, and obviously I'm burnt out and sweaty and hot. So this is the little shade we had, and they would reuse tires as kind of like seats. They would grab old tires and plant them in the dirt and they'd sit right in them. But this is just a fun time with the kids, getting to talk to them.
This is another church that we went to and attended on Thursday night, I think it was. And then this is the day we dug another footer. I think it was 48 feet long on the side of a church. Because they wanted to put a gate up because there was a door on the side of this church that the people could just cut the rebar that was holding the door up and just pop the door off and walk right in the church and get what they want. So we had to build a footer for a fence they could put up. Again,
building protection for the church. Just because down there, people steal. Just like here. So here we are digging. There's Micah. And so a great way to encourage each other and the staff there is they put these envelopes up and with your name and what school you're from. And they also put all the staff, like the MGM drivers, translators, and leaders and
cooking,
cleaning. And so throughout the week, once you got to have a great conversation with someone, you just felt, that you wanted to encourage one another, that you just quickly slip in a index card with some encouraging words, maybe a Bible verse. And that was just a great way to encourage one another, because at the end of the week, everyone had maybe at least 4 or 8. Some people that are very famous, their envelope was falling off. The tape was falling off because they had it completely full.
And then they took us to a baseball game an hour and a half away and closer to the coastline. We got on a bus and drove an hour and a half Wednesday night. This was their winter league, and they had some MLB players on their team that night. I didn't know any of them, but they were apparently guys from the MLB came down for their winter ball.
Again, just baseball is huge down there, and they've never been able to go to a baseball game before, but somehow this year they're able to. And it was just really cool, the mission trip to go down. It was just really cool to see, it was a nice baseball field, and they had fans that were just as excited. And the team we cheered for lost by like 8 points, so it wasn't great, but it was a great experience. And they walked around with interesting foods. They had like cheese, like mozzarella cheese almost, in just a bucket, which they were selling. And
then they had popcorn in a trash can.
This guy was having a trash can on his back with a huge thing of popcorn.
But he had it in a nice big plastic bag inside the trash can that just formed into. Yeah, it was all clean.
I got to buy some soda that was expired about 2 months ago when I bought it. So it was fun.
I think this is a sunrise from the top of the compound. You can see it out there. There's Scott again. This is our last day of mission work. We went out and evangelized.
So the first day, me and Micah both did construction. The second day, he did painting. I did the VBS program. Third day, we dug that footer in front of the church. And then the last day, something that people had really encouraged us to do is go try evangelism, which I always was going to, but the day before, they only had like 2 other people doing it, so I signed up. But this was just a really great experience. You got to go around with a leader and a translator. And so everyone was hanging out in front of their houses, even though like if they had their phones and stuff, or they weren't inside on their phones. They were outside in the front talking to people, and just chilling. So we would just walk up and start a conversation is really how the one leader really said that's just how you go about it. You get to learn about them, ask them questions, and then just gradually bring up the gospel and talk about it, which is really cool to, hear it in English, then tell the translator, then the translator tells them in Spanish, and they answer you, then it's back to the translator, and then he speaks to you. So it was longer conversations, but nevertheless, it was very interesting and fruitful.
This is just us going home after a long day in the cattle truck I think this day we probably drove 45 minutes back to the compound. So. Then they had a prayer night on Thursday, I think it was. They call it tacos. It's an abbreviation for Thanksgiving, adoration, confession, others, and self, I think it is. It's a good all-encompassing prayer time. People would just they ask you to just say it out loud what you want prayer for, and everyone would hear and pray for whoever they heard as we all bowed our heads. That's pretty cool.
You could say it out loud. You could pray to yourself, and it was really, a great time to pray for one another. People you've just met a couple days ago, but in that moment, we all felt very close as brothers and sisters in Christ. And you really realize that everyone else has a lot going in their lives. It's not just you. And it was just a really powerful and a great time to have with one another.
And then Friday, they drove us an hour and a half back to the coastline. We went to the beach, and they did some baptisms there. For anyone who got saved that week and wasn't baptized, or anyone that had been saved already and wasn't baptized. So
in the missions group, there was about 3
salvations.
3 students that accepted Christ during the week, and then there were about 8 baptisms.
8 people wanted baptized.
So that was pretty cool. And an engagement. Someone got engaged out of a group at the beach, which was pretty cool.
Scott again. And then this is the whole group. I think I counted 75 student athletes and all the leaders too. I think Isaac and I'm down there. Isaac's.
I'm up there.
Oh, you're right there. And they had a nice stained glass mural in the compound in the mess hall of Jesus standing or walking over the water. And they had Bible verses up on the walls all throughout the compound, and people on hand painted and stuff. So that's pretty cool to see.
Fun fact about the bathroom situation is, with showers, they said you got to take like army showers. So you're in, you're out.
5 minutes or less.
5 minutes or less, because we only had a limited water supply. And so, and I'm telling you, there's no other temperature except freezing cold. So you wouldn't want to be in there longer than 5 minutes. It was quickly in and out. And then with using the bathroom, they did have toilets, but you weren't allowed to throw toilet paper in there. So they had a little bin that you got to throw all that in, and then do your business. And then with water, like brushing your teeth or anything, you couldn't put any of the water in your mouth. So with brushing teeth, they had a separate thing of water that you quickly use and brush your teeth with, or rinse your mouth with, and then spit it out, because you were not allowed, unless you really want to become very sick, to drink or have that water even in your mouth.
And then this is the Messiah group, the Grove City group, the IUP group, the Millersville group, and then the outliers, Florida or Virginia or wherever. That's our.
So thank you guys a lot for your tremendous support. It was a really amazing experience. My Spanish is a little bit better. And, it was just really encouraging to go somewhere else, and knowing that even though, there's a lot of work in the Dominican that needs to be done, constantly through the week, we always talked about how missions work needs to be done here, in our everyday, whether it's at school or work or even with your family. And so, it was just a great time to grow in your faith and grow in relationships. So, any questions? Yes.
Did you have any experience with any theft?
So we didn't have any experiences with theft, thankfully. The people there are, obviously there are areas that you go to. The area we were in was poor, but they weren't necessarily violent. There were definitely areas where we were told there was violence and you don't want to go around. They told you don't take anything expensive out when you went out to the compound. So we, don't take a large amount of money, don't take anything, because they're like, seriously, if you set it down, you might never see it again. Kid might quickly grab it or somebody else. So you had to be careful and very, here in America, you might be more relaxed about laying stuff around, but over there you had to be on top of things. So no theft, thankfully. Any others?
What does MGM stand for?
Meeting God in Missions. They're a group founded by a guy from Erie, PA, and he first went on to Dominican in the 80s and 90s, and the land was donated and by locals, a local church down there, and they built a compound, and they've since planted multiple churches. I don't know the number of how many churches they planted, but we were in 3 different churches the whole week, so they planted at least 3 churches in that 1-2 hour region around them. So that was cool to see.
They also have like a deaf program for kids there. So that's part of the thing they do there is they have a deaf school where they fit people with hearing aids or, get them supplies they need. So they talked about how, anybody with any hearing aids or even used ones or broken ones, that they take that because they use, pieces from it, whatever, and they donate it to that, which then that's another outreach they have there.
Any other questions?
It's an island, but do they have like leopards there or that kind of thing?
I think they have everything that a tropical rainforest would. We weren't in the rainforest, but there were parts down that had rainforest. I'm sure they had. So we saw iguanas, geckos, lizards. We saw some birds, a lot of crows, some vultures.
They really didn't have anything crazy. They had huge spiders. We thankfully didn't see any. Snakes, scorpions. Nothing really crazy though. A lot of the animals you saw there were a lot of cows. Saw a lot of goats. Goats were everywhere. There were pigs, chickens, and then you would see cats once in a while. But they had like the one type of dog. I don't know the breed, but it was just they only had that's all you saw basically. It was that one type of breed of dog walking around, which you weren't allowed to touch any of those animals.
Yeah, could have had rabies.
All could get at you.
Or anything else.
You didn't know.
Or they could bite you.
They did have like 3 dogs at the compound that you were allowed to touch because they had their shots and everything. But other than that, you weren't allowed.
Any other questions?
When you went out on evangelism and you walked up to the door, were most of them receptive or kind of laid back and who are you and why are
Yeah.
you here?
So it was really interesting. I was talking to my parents about this, about in the Dominican, everyone basically knows about God. Everyone has, actually, they know, like, I feel like they know a lot more than the average American would. You walk into their house and you start talking about, like, God, and they're like, oh, yeah, I go to church every Sunday. But they say, but I used to be a Christian, and they're very upfront about how, about that. Like, they believe that they could lose their salvation, that, the churches down there are pretty strict on things too. So if boys have earrings, they're not allowed to go to church, or tattoos. But they always would hear you out, and they always enjoyed, interacting conversation. But usually the theme was they always would say, I'm not ready yet. Or
I'll think about it.
I'll think about it.
Get to it later.
Or they'll say someday. There's something that seemed to always be holding them back, that they didn't want to, follow Christ. Because I think even though we told them it's not about laws, it's not about this status or whatever, it's about a relationship, they still felt that they just couldn't. But we did get to talk to this one guy. Remember his name? Didn't have a picture of him. But he was by himself, and with our evangelism group, we walked up, sat down, and we started talking, and got a little bit of his story. His wife had just left him with his 2 daughters, and he's building a house for them currently still. And he was talking about how he was a Christian before, but then she left him, and she wanted to live in the world or whatever. And we talked to him, and we talked about how, in those moments that bad things happen, Christ doesn't want you to run away from him. He wants you to run to him. And, just to see him, like, ask questions and we answer them. And also, was it Pastor Bob? Pastor Bob just did a fantastic job of just conversing with him. And with the translator, that, if you'd read a verse and then he would ask him a question, and he'd get it wrong, he's like, no, listen closely. You have him read the verse again, and then he'd get it. And at the end of it all, he, even though he was already saved in our terms, we had like a rededication almost, that we said the prayer with him. And just to see the smile on his face right after, before he was sitting there and he looked, just like another day, but he had this humongous smile on his face that you just could see it, and you're just like, oh, yes. And we got to give him a Spanish Bible, and we also gave him a girl's Bible. And we told him, when you tell your daughters or your wife and one of them comes to Christ, you give them this Bible. So, it was really cool. And there's other people that got, other people that came to Christ later too, through other evangelism groups. But it was really interesting because people here say, oh yeah, I know Christ, I know Jesus, but they won't know anything more after you ask them deeper questions. Whereas here they, Sundays they don't have anything else to do, so they go to church, even though they don't believe in God. Whereas it's here, you have people that believe in God but don't go to church. So it was really interesting to see, the difference between that, it's just different. But it was definitely cool and a great experience. Yes.
Would you guys go back?
Absolutely. It was really a really great time. Yeah, I have no reason to not want to go.
It's just a good time to get away from America and get things from a new perspective and just draw closer to God.
Yeah, exactly.
For more.
It was really nice, I have to say, to be around people my age and them not being on their phones, and me not to be on my phone.
They asked us to, well, there's no service for some people, and some people that did have service, they were told to keep their phones away.
Some losers bought, the extra service or whatever, so they would be on their phones once in a while, but it was great to be completely detached from, situations at home and problems, and just to be with people there who all, are here to serve Jesus and, all love Jesus. And it was just great to be surrounded by that, whereas, a lot of times you feel you're one with nobody else around you, So it was really cool.
guys.
Thank you. All right.